Hello, everyone. This is Alex Trumbull from the Executive Appeal, and today, today is a good day. Why? Because we have another phenomenal leader with us, ready to share some really exciting stories as well as some knowledge in regards to leadership and how all of us and all of you can reach your goals. So let's bring on today's guest, Mr. Khari Brown. Khari Brown is the president and CEO of Spark the Journey. Khari joined Spark the Journey in 2001 as the organization's executive director and quickly became, quickly became the CEO in 2015. Since then, he has taken the organization from a niche program that served and reached about 50 students per year to a powerhouse organization that is currently supporting more than 500 students and has grown over 400% since 2012. This is why we have him on today, to talk about this type of leadership. See, under his leadership, man, I'm just getting so excited. Spark the Journey has seen 61% of its graduates complete college on time, a rate that is nearly 3 times that of similar students across the country. I just have to say, how are you doing today, kind sir?
I am doing great, and that's a heck of an intro. Thank you very much. Pleasure
Well,
to be here.
hey, look, it is all my pleasure that you have you here because there's really no other question that I can start this conversation off with than the one I'm about to ask right now. Okay, so in doing my research about you, I heard that you were a powerhouse, that you actually played professional basketball, and you were so good that you were invited to play basketball against President Obama at Camp David. And during that basketball game, you dunked on the president. So how does it feel to have dunked on a president?
I love how stories evolve over time and become. I jumped from half court, Alex. Did you hear that too? It was incredible. You should have seen it.
MJ had nothing on you.
No. That was my day. No, that was a tremendous experience, and basketball has given me a lot of things in life, and that is one of the top. playing with the president for sure.
Well, on a serious note, though, I do have to ask, like, how do you get invited to Camp David to play with the president of the United States? Like, how does that even happen?
Good fortune is a big part of that answer. But I've been leading this mentoring program for the last 22 years. We used to be called Capital Partners for Education. We've rebranded and we're Spark the Journey. And we rely on volunteers, and several of those volunteers worked for the president and were involved, and were basketball players themselves. And so, as you know, or many people know, that President Obama was a avid basketball fan and player, and some people in the White House had a job of organizing basketball games and finding local players. So some of the volunteers in our program invited me, and that was a thrill of a lifetime.
Well, just if you ever talk to them, please let them know that I do play a little ball myself. I still remember I played when I was in elementary. I was a beast. I was a beast in elementary.
Well, I think president's now in his 60s and is playing more golf than hoop. So I think that the window might have closed on that one.
So here's where we're going to go with this. Okay, so I think it was Warren Buffett is famous for saying, everyone know Bobby, the guy who played the chess master. Really good.
Fischer, I think. Yeah.
Bobby Fischer. Yeah, he said, if you want to beat Bobby Fischer, then play Bobby Fischer at any other sport than chess.
So there you go.
So to make a reference to President Obama playing less ball now, that's perfect for me. One,
right.
But two, I'd love to hear about you and obviously there are things that you're good at. Obviously, because you've been in this role for now 22 years, you have some really cool stuff happening this year. Actually, I know you'll talk about later. But how did you decide, one, what you are good at,
Mm.
and then also like what are you not good at? You're like, you know what, I'm just not going to focus my energy there. I can always find a partner with someone. But how did you decide where to focus your energy on what you're good at, and also in those things that you just didn't feel like you should spend as much time on?
You know, that's a tough question, Alex. I don't know that I grew up thinking, you know, these are the things I'm really good at, and I I approached it thinking, you know, this is what I like, and this is what I'm passionate about, and this is what's important to me. And that's really what drew me to the work that I've been doing in my career. When I started, I was the only person on the staff, so I was a team of one, and I had to do everything, and I had to learn that really quickly. And of course, I wasn't good at everything, so I needed to, you know, to answer your question, bring in people and get help from people who knew those things that I wasn't as good at, or you know, and get their help. And so that was a quick lesson for me: is, you know, surround yourself with smart people, people who have skills that you don't have, and make sure that, you know, they're doing the things that help to complement your strengths. And I think, you know, I've that's what I continue to try to do, and it's just really refine and spend my time doing the things that are most useful to the mission that I'm, you know, leading, and build a team around me of stars who, you know, can do those other things that they are best at. And I think that's, you know, one of the most important things about leadership.
I think this is a relevant question I'm going to ask, especially because you deal with a lot of mentoring and the development of people. How do you know the difference between, you know, needing to hire the person who is great for the position or the person who could be great for the position? And I'm going to preface that with John Maxwell once said, the best way to have a motivated staff is to hire motivated people, right?
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
where is that line for leaders when they can say, hey, look, I know this person can do this person over here, test it, they can do the job. Or versus you saying, I know this is going to be more time for me, it's going to be more effort for me to develop this person, to coach this person, but I think they could do it. How do you decide when to invest versus get the person who you know can do the job?
Yeah, that is a great question. If you see something in someone that is a strength that you think you can help develop and that will shine, you know, over time, I've gone after that person and looked to, you know, help to grow them and support them along that journey, and that has worked out great. But I would also say that, you know, hiring is not an exact science, and you know, you go into it and you make the best call that you can based upon all the information that you have. But you can invest all the resources in the world and have as many interviews and have, you know, and background checks and all of the, and it's never perfect, right? It's never perfect. So sometimes you just have to go with your gut.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, often, you know, the deciding factor.
You make me think of the song, you gotta know when to hold them, you gotta know when to fold them. Because, so like you said, sometimes you're gonna make really, really great hiring choices. Because you said it's not a exact science.
Right.
However, there are times when you make the hiring decision and it's not a great person. No, not. So let me take a step back. They're not like they're not a great person. Maybe they're not the right fit for the organization and or for that position.
Right.
You know, what I've ran into so often though is leaders who in retrospect understand that, hey, this is not working,
Hmm.
but they don't want to have tough conversations, and so they
Hmm.
allow that person to stay, and it can have negative impacts on the organization, on the team. And what do you say to those leaders who know they have someone on their team that is not performing at the level they should be, to not only support the team but also support the mission of the organization, and the people who are relying on this organization to fulfill that mission? What would you say? What advice would you have to them? Having an employee on staff that's just it's just not working.
Well, hopefully, the person, that leader, sees what I'm seeing, right? And so that's number one, is making sure that, uh, I'd say, hey, this is what I'm seeing, and you know, what do you think? Are you seeing? Because they're going to be closer to it than I am. But I would then, encourage them to, try to support that person, and can we work around this issue, or is this something that is not solvable? And often, it's the former, but sometimes, you just can't. It's just not the right fit, and then you
Mhm.
have to know when it's going to be better, to find someone who is.
I spoke to a good friend of mine on another episode a few months ago, Ryan Chinkoko, and he and I talked about how, like, there's so many leadership books out there that tell you, hey, this is how you deal with a challenged employee. Have this conversation, sit them down, provide them with a PIP, provide them with mentoring opportunities, so on and so forth. But he's like, but none of those books really get into the emotional anguish that will come from having to have those conversations, because as a leader, I mean, generally speaking, people, I don't believe people are bad. I don't think people just want to be not performing their job well, and yet you're having to make a decision that will impact them, their families, and so on and so forth. Like, there's a lot of emotional. I'll tell you myself. Like, there was one time I had to let an employee go,
Yeah.
um, and I did everything I possibly could to help that employee, but it got to the point where there's nothing that could be done. And
Right.
I
Right.
still remember I couldn't sleep for like the week leading up to that, because I was
Of
just
course.
I
Yeah.
couldn't stop thinking about their life.
Hmm. 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 Well, Alex, in 22 years of leading Spark the Journey, of course, I've had I've had that same type of instance, and one thing to think about is that when you're letting a person stay on who is not performing, and think about what that may be doing to the morale of others on your team. And
Mhm.
I've had situations where, say there's someone who's really advocating for the person who's underperforming, or we're just reluctant because of circumstances surrounding that person, and and then you find out that it's causing more damage to keep them around, because other people are looking around and saying, like, why is this person getting a break when I'm having to do her work?
Mm, mm,
And
mm.
I'm doing this extra stuff and I'm not getting recognized for that, right? And that's not fair, right? So you want to create a culture, where there's accountability and fairness, and part of that, is making sure that everybody is doing what they're there to do, and that's in
Yeah.
support of your mission, right? And so, yes, it does not keep you from having those sleepless nights necessarily, but when you are drifting off to sleep, know that you're making your decisions for what is best for the
Mm,
people that you lead, and
yeah.
and then hopefully you get a good night's sleep, right?
No, that's a really, really great point to reframe that thinking. It's not about it just made me click for me. Like, it's not about potentially harming that person. It's not about harming that, even though there is uncomfortability that may be coming from that. But it's also about helping the team, about helping the people who are going to be positively impacted by the results of the mission of the organization if you can accomplish it. So there is a lot of positive that could be taking place because of the action you're taking as a leader.
That's right. That's right. There, when you're making decisions as a leader, they're going to be potentially unpopular with some percentage of your stakeholders, right? And so if you're spending your time really worrying about making everybody happy, that is a recipe for failure, because it's impossible, right? And so you have to follow what is best, what information do I have as the leader that others maybe don't have, and what is my responsibility here? It is to the mission, it is to the people, right? And sometimes you got to make hard calls.
So I was blessed. My first professional opportunity was overseeing and creating the Executive Leadership Development Program for the U.S. Department of the Interior. So I worked at the Office of the Secretary, and I got to see the organization from, quote unquote, the top level and see how things interacted with the national versus the bureaus versus the states and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And then from that point in my career, I was able to dig down. Oh, I worked at the bureau level, and I worked at the park level, and I work at different organizations across the country. And one of those things I really took with me is because I started off working at a level that allowed me to see things from a macro perspective.
Yeah.
It allowed me to understand that sometimes leaders are making decisions that I just don't have the information, right? I just don't have the context they have, but also I know that, yes, some people are benefiting from this, but I also know some people are being harmed by this. And I understand how hard it is to make these decisions, especially at the macro level. But what I found is that there's just a lot of people who also haven't had that experience, right? They haven't worked in a scenario where they saw or they've seen these decisions being made. Where, again, I love teaching on right versus right, like where it's right to do this, but it's right to do that. And either way, some people are going to not.
Yeah.
So how do you help people understand who haven't had that experience, understand that, as a leader, I'm going to have to make a decision that, or you're possibly not whoever you're talking to, you're going to end up making a decision that is not going to be happy with everyone, but it's what's best for that situation.
Alex, not everyone, as I said, is going to be happy, and you just have to, trust your gut and have faith that you're doing the right thing. Of course, you want to communicate, as much as you are able to, why you are making decisions. But sometimes there will be decisions that you have to make where there's a piece of information that is privileged and you can't share. And as much as you would really want to, for privacy reasons or whatever, you just cannot share. And, that is hard, but that's why it's a privilege to be a leader. And, you get a lot of power and privilege, and that just comes with it, I think.
I was having a conversation with a friend of mine recently, and he brought up that part of the challenge that that leaders have nowadays is a trust deficit. Back in the day, quote unquote, people would just, if something was happening, the leader would say, hey, this happened and this is why we're doing it, and so on and so forth. And there was a degree of just trusting. Okay, well, the leader made that decision, must be a reason for it. It sucks, but we're going to go along with it. However, the pendulum has kind of swung the other way. There's a lack of trust. There's where at a macro level, he said that, there's just more distrust for the system, and are you really doing what's right? Are you really doing it for right for the organization, or is it right for you? And there's a lot of questioning. And as a leader, you find yourself in those situations where you have that critical piece of information that
hmm
that you just can't share. That if everyone knew that they would understand, likely, hopefully,
hmm
but you can't share that. So you're relying on trust,
hmm
but
hmm
trust isn't just given nowadays. Like, how do you, again, and I feel like in a society where we are now kind of tense, I think like more people are tense nowadays for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah,
How
yeah,
do you
yeah,
go about building that trust when it's really easy for people to say, I don't know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Trust is built over time. There's not a single instance, right? So people are going to watch what you do, what you say all the time. And every action you're banking, hopefully, some element of trust with people. And you have to be intentional about that. So when there comes a time that you have to, when you say, listen, you know, this is what we're going to do, and this is why, and and you tell them all that you can tell them, and they want more, and you're not able to share more. They have to trust you, and part of your success at that point is going to be built upon, or based upon, what you did last year, 2 years ago, last week,
Mm,
that is not even related to this instance. And so, I can think back to instances where, I was in that position and some people were questioning me, and I had to say, well, why are they questioning me?
yeah,
Maybe I have not communicated enough with, some of these folks. And, I've got to do that. That means I got to do better at that. Right.
yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
think we always have to be introspective about, um, how we can communicate better, because that's what I think it comes down to. If your actions are pure, and then the deficit is probably in your communication.
You you I love this direction you've gone. You make me think of actually one of the topics I talk about in one of my trainings is leadership perception. Um, I love to make the point, you know, um, that it really doesn't matter what you think. To a large degree, it really matters what the people around you think. I say it because
hmm
you can think that you are a phenomenal communicator, um,
hmm hmm
and everyone around you could say, no, you're not.
hmm hmm hmm
So, to a large degree, it really does matter. And I say that that's perception. You could be doing everything you possibly can, but if there is a perception that you are a certain way, it actually tints how people view what you do.
Right.
Like, it was
Right.
actually really
Right.
interesting. My wife and I are reading this book, and she brought up the fact that, again, we're not going to go into this too deep, but I'm reading this book, and she's like, "Hey, Alex, you realize like if someone was a quote unquote liberal,
Mhm.
they would interpret this section of the book this way. And if they were
Yes.
conservative, they would interpret it this way, and they would
Right.
have two different meanings of the book
Yes.
based on their own experiences. So that perception piece is so important. I want to just underscore for everyone who's listening that this is something also not to be pushed to the side, because you can do everything right as a leader. You can do everything right.
Right.
But if the perception of you
hmm hmm
is off and or is negative, and people are then interpreting everything you're doing in a particular way, that
Right.
could lead to you getting undermined or getting fired,
That's right.
or like perception is important. Is that
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, one thing that I had to learn was, it goes back to what I was saying before about communication. So, as I've been leading Spark the Journey, we were very small when I started. And so when you're leading a team of 3 people, it's pretty easy to communicate. Like, everybody knows what's going on. When you make a decision, it's pretty clear why. They've
yeah,
been involved in the process. And, then you grow to 5 to 10. And then once you get past about 10 people, now, you have specialists who are doing roles, and you have to be able to communicate, across the organization in a different way. And that was something that, that I had to learn was, as we got larger, that I couldn't rely on people observing necessarily. I had to be more deliberate in the ways in which I would share, what it was we were doing and why. And that, you had to learn the hard way, right? I think, a lot of what I share about leadership is, you're going to make mistakes, and and it's what you do after you make those mistakes, that really defines, your character and what, in your organization's success, right? Because again, if you've built up some element of trust and you've been competent, they're not going to get rid of you after you make your first mistake. And so, did you pick yourself up and dust yourself off and figure out what you need to do better? And that can lead to growth, right? And I think that's what all, really effective leaders do. They're not going to be dissuaded by a particular setback. They're going to be more motivated to find a way to figure out, okay, all right, so that didn't work. What's going to work here? How do I do that? Okay, now let's go.
You along those lines, I've heard you talk about the importance of infrastructure. You talked about how important it is for nonprofits and for-profit organizations to be intentional with building infrastructure, because many organizations find themselves in a situation where they're growing, and then they try to think, oh shoot, I forgot we need infrastructure. And as I hear you talking right now, what it also makes me think of is not only infrastructure in regards to the company, but infrastructure in regards to your personal self. You need to be consistently building yourself, your skills, your resilience, like all those things. So when you are in those situations or those opportunities come, you have the foundation. You may not have everything, but you have maybe the foundation needed to overcome that, whatever that challenge may be, or that opportunity what are your thoughts and reactions to that?
Yeah, it's so important, Alex, to make sure that as a leader that you're taking care of yourself, and because if you're not doing it, then it's all going to fall apart, right? When you hit those hard times, you got to draw on, some element of reserves that have to be there, right? And you have to be steady through ups and downs. So for me, I work really hard at, trying to keep the right balance in my life, to be able to have, time with my family and time for myself, time for my, taking care of my health, making sure that I'm sleeping and eating, I'm not making bad decisions because I'm worn down, right? And that's, I think, been a real key to my longevity. 22 years of leading in this sector, and when I started, there were people I looked up to who were the top leaders, and I look around and those folks have been gone for 15 years now, and I'm still plugging away. So, I think for me, that's been really, really important. You can weather those storms, right? That are, whether they're external storms or storms of your own making, right? We faced both of those in the last 3 years, right? And so, that's how you get through those hard times. And also, Alex, it sets an example for, the people on your team, right? You have to be mindful about, sort of what are people taking away from the way I'm carrying myself. And, that's a really important aspect as well, because people will, follow your cues, and that becomes a part of the culture, for better or for worse.
Goodness gracious. Okay, you said two things I want to make sure we have some time to talk about really quickly.
Mhm.
The first is you were talking about taking care of self,
Mhm.
and you made me think. Recently, I've been struggling with my weight for a while.
Mhm.
I know everyone who's seen this video or my videos of me. I know you're gonna say, "Oh, Alex, you look so handsome and super good looking." I know, but I'm still trying to get more.
You beat me to it, Alex. I was just about to say
Well,
that.
you know, I was the other day. I was thinking to myself, like, man, like, you know, I haven't lost the weight that I wanted to lose. I've been trying to do this for a while, but I haven't lost the weight I wanted to lose. And I don't know what happened, but it just like come clicked. And it was like, oh shoot, last October you were 283.
Mhm.
And now I mean, just yesterday or this morning I weighed myself, I'm 261.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, like I actually have made progress.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
it's so easy to forget the progress you've made, right? Not only in weight, but as a leader, it's really
Mm.
you just get into the day-to-day grind trying to make good decisions and help people. And I think
Mhm.
it's really important what you're talking about is take a second to pause and just
Yeah.
look back and see how far you've come, you know?
Yeah. Alex, I'm terrible at that. So I'm right there with you, brother. Um, I need to be better at acknowledging that I am always a forward-looking person, and that helps me when I was just sharing about how you get up and like you're not dissuaded by mistakes that you make. And you've got to recognize your progress. You can't just be driven by fear of failure or the motivation to achieve more
Mhm,
without recognizing your successes. It's not healthy for you as the leader. But
mhm,
again, your team needs that validation, that recognition, because they're doing the hard work that all of the time, and they need that recognition for that constant progress, whether you're at the final destination or
mhm,
not.
mhm.
And so that's something that I've had to, I'm better, but I'm still have to do better, and that's and I will.
I everything you said, super serious, super agree with. Um, and for those of you who are of a certain age, we probably had um, a visual image popped in our head when you said Final Destination. I immediately think of the movie.
Okay, no plane crashes.
Every side note, every time we're driving on the road and I see one of those big trucks with the logs on it, I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
nope, not driving behind this.
Yeah, right.
The other thing you mentioned, I love this key in on really quickly. You mentioned the word culture.
Mhm.
And, you know, the reality is that the work you do is impacting culture.
Mhm.
Um, but and it is impacted by culture.
Yeah.
um, our society, the norms, the systems that we have, like what people believe should and should not be happening, those are all part of culture. And what I want to raise to you, so I was being interviewed for another, for BIPOC, actually. No, PSYOP, no, BIOP, the Black Industrial and Organizational Psychology organization, which is really cool organization.
Wow. Yeah.
And they asked me, why is culture so difficult to change so difficult? And I share with them, like, the reality is like culture of the organization, the systems, how people operate, regardless of how quote unquote bad it is, someone is benefiting from it, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so those people won't want the culture to change
Mhm.
because they're benefiting from it, generally speaking. But then even the people who aren't benefiting from it um, are benefiting from it because even when you have a bad system, if it's a system, there is there is security because you know what's going to happen. You know what to expect. And people like to know what to expect. So when you start changing and shaping culture, now you're throwing that system out of whack. And people have to figure out, okay, how are we going to move forward? There's anxiety that comes along with change. You and I know this.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
you can even have those people who know that the culture is not great kind of fighting against you, because it's also easier for me to say, yes, I agree the culture of this organization, of the system is not great. And you should change. I don't want to change. You should change your behaviors. And so this is hard. How do you go about doing the work you do with your organization? How are you fighting to change the culture in regards to education and mentorship, and you're focused on helping leaders move, more diverse leaders move in senior level positions such as I.
Right.
How are you working, and how do you believe we should move to try to change this culture, given how difficult it is?
Well, Alex, I'm really fortunate, that culture is one of the things. I think it's an amazing strength for our organization. If you ask our employees, today or 15 years ago, they would all tell you that they come to this organization because they are passionate about supporting young people and helping them achieve. And that is the strength in our culture, that they will go above and beyond, driven by that really powerful and important mission. And so we haven't had to really change that. That has been a constant for us. And it's just, that is why, when people ask me, what has kept you here for so long? I'm we were working together, and I'm on my fourth job since, we were working together, some years ago. And I say, it's great to be able to get up every day and work with people who are so driven to help young people achieve. And that, I want to be around those people. They give me energy. Our organization, we have a 500-person volunteer workforce, right? So people come to us because they see what's happening in our communities, and they want to be a part of the change.
Yeah.
Right. And I love being around those people. They, like I said, they give me energy. Their enthusiasm, their sincerity, is motivating to me. It makes me want to, make sure that I'm doing all that I can for those people. Right. Mm-hmm. How can I not want to, when you're helping someone who is going through a potential eviction and is trying to figure out how are they going to, persist in school, and you're helping to get them the resources that they need to, overcome those challenges. Like, I want to be around those people. That's a culture that I want to be a part of. So that's been a real blessing for me, and I think for everyone who's been involved with Spark.
I just want to really quickly underscore for everyone, everything you said, I love, and it's amazing. And on top of that, you mentioned a 500-person volunteer workforce. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many people who are listening to this have managed a volunteer workforce. It is not easy. It's extremely impressive what you have done and are doing. Again, just quick note. Imagine you have employees that you're paying to do a job, and mm-hmm. some of them don't want to do it. Imagine having people you're not paying.
Right.
You have to engage them, and and so the work you're doing obviously is so profound, and having such a positive impact that these people continue to come to your organization and serve and mentor and just do phenomenal things. And so I know that you have to jump off. I believe you have a pickup game with Biden this afternoon.
I gotta be careful not to jump from half court over.
Not on Biden.
Right?
Not on Biden.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
well, look, I want to open the floor to you. Is there anything you'd like to share with our audience as we begin to wrap up?
Well, Alex, thank you for that. We have an event coming up on April 26th. We're celebrating our 30th anniversary with Spark the Journey as an organization mentoring young people to college and career in the Washington, D.C. area. So we're celebrating this event. It's a fundraising event on April 26th at 6 o'clock. It's at the Eaton Hotel in D.C. And folks can get more information by going to our website, which is sparkthejourney.org. And, it's going to be an incredible night. We're bringing back alumni who are going to share some stories. And we have Councilmember Will Jawando, who is actually one of those guys who be on the court with me and President Obama, is from a basketball friend of mine who's a council member and wrote an incredible book called My Seven Black Fathers. And he's a mentoring advocate and a public official and someone who's doing great work in our community. So it's going to be a terrific event, and hope that your guests can join us.
Well, as long as you can invite me on the court, I will be there.
All right.
I tell people I've gotten. Oh, go on.
No. I was gonna say, we could schedule that pickup game, but
I've gotten to the point in my career where I don't play for free, so there's got to be.
all right.
I'm that good. I'm that good. Hey, look, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate you. I love the conversation. I love everything you've shared today. And I want to thank the audience. I want to thank all of you, especially all of you who've made it this far into the show, for being consistent, for being focused, for being interested and curious to learn and continuously find ways to grow yourself. So I want to say that, but you know what I'm going to say next. Don't just look back. Reach back. If you found anything of value today, don't keep it to yourself and say that person over there should have been there. Don't do that. Don't be that guy. Don't be that gal. Bring this to them. Share the link with them. Share the knowledge. Click like, subscribe, comment. We love to hear from you. You can always reach out to me or Khari. Khari, can I ask, how can people connect with you, actually?
You can find me through on LinkedIn, on Twitter, through our website, any of those, and can we share the links with you, Alex?
I will share them in the description. Be sure to also include your MySpace URL so that we can.
I'll have to look that one up, dust it up.
Hey, look, everyone, thank you so much. As always, I encourage you to stay strong, stay positive, and definitely stay moving. See ya. Thanks for listening to The Executive Appeal with Alex Trumbull. I invite you to follow The Executive Appeal wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow me, your host, Alex Trumbull, across all socials or via email for exclusive webinars, courses, and speaking engagements on continued topics of executive leadership. So until next time, stay strong, stay positive, and definitely stay moving.